Hello there, thrill seekers. I made a vow to myself not to talk about any sort of current events or news or politics on this video channel. But God, this one that came up recently is just too much synchronicity to ignore. So let me just break my own vow. Okay, any of you who watched the Oscars, did anybody actually watch the Oscars? I did not watch the Oscars, but when I woke up the next morning, my wife was telling me, "Oh, you should have seen what happened at the Oscars. It's all over the internet," because she was looking at the internet and said Will Smith smacked Chris Rock, and probably everybody's seen this. Maybe I'll run a clip while, just in case anybody missed it. But basically, movie star Will Smith felt insulted by something that Chris Rock had said about his wife on stage, a joke he made, and he walked up and he slapped Chris Rock in the face, and then went and sat down and yelled some obscenities at him. Okay, that's the story. So, like, the goings on of big movie stars who are pampered and out of touch with reality and kind of in their own weird bubble world of being rich and powerful and famous don't really interest me. But the synchronicity, as I say, was too much to resist, cause I just happened to be working on. I'm going to show you this, my audiobook for my new book called, what's it called? The Other Side of Nothing, which comes out in May. Everybody buy it, and I'll tell you at the end why all of you have to buy the book and get your friends to buy the book and get everybody you know to buy the book. But I just happened to be working on a chapter called Dogen's Weird Ideas About Space, and I decided to read that chapter this morning into my GarageBand. That's how I make these audiobooks, before I went out here to make a video. And I'm talking in this chapter about something which is kind of relevant to Will Smith smacking Chris Rock in the face. In the chapter, Dogen's Weird Ideas About Space, I am writing about a chapter of Shobo Genzo called Koku, which is often translated, well, Nishijima Roshi has translated as space. Sometimes it can be translated as emptiness. Let's see, his introduction goes, Ko means vacant or void, and Ku means air, space, or emptiness. So Koku means space. Space and time have been fundamental concepts in philosophy since ancient times and in science too. Even in ancient India, people frequently discussed the nature of space and time. And this tradition influenced Buddhism, so the nature of space and time became a very important subject in Buddhism in India. And so on and so forth, and he talks about it. Now, the reason this comes up and the reason this goes to the Chris Rock thing, Chris Rock and Will Smith thing, is the chapter centers around this koan, and I'll just read you the koan as it is expressed by Nishijima and Cross in their translation. Zen Master Shakyo Eizo of Bushu asks Zen Master Seido Chizo, "Do you understand how to grasp space?" Seido says, "I understand how to grasp it." The master says, "How do you grasp it?" Seido clutches at space with his hand. The master says, "You do not understand how to grasp space." Seido says, "How do you grasp it, brother?" The master grabs Seido's nostrils and pulls them. Like in a Three Stooges thing. I mean, Mo used to do that to Curly or to Shemp all the time. So, master grabs nostrils and pulls them. Groaning with pain, Seido says, "It is very brutal to yank a person's nostrils, but I have directly been able to get free." The master says, "Directly grabbing hold like this, you should have got it from the beginning." So, that's the koan. And Dogen goes on to explain the koan and explain the meaning of space and all of that. And that part is very interesting and philosophical, but it doesn't relate directly to the matter of Will Smith and Chris Rock. However, what does get to the matter of Will Smith and Chris Rock is that Dogen, after explaining this, goes on a a kind of a long, not a long, but he goes on a little rant about the method with which this one Zen master teaches the thing to the other Zen master. And because I am who I am and I am a huge Three Stooges fan, I am sorry about the beeping. That beeping has been going on literally, I don't know, since nothing a.m. this morning, and it never stops. I keep thinking, okay, they're going to beep and beep and beep like this, and eventually whatever backing up has to be done will be done, and they'll be all the way backed up, and they'll stop. No, it never stops. So I'm really sorry. I hope it's not distracting you. It's distracting me. But anyway, being a Three Stooges fan, I changed the Zen Masters to Zen Master Mo and Zen Master Curly for, if anybody knows the Three Stooges, you'll know the reasons. Okay, I have literally paused this recording for the past 22 hours. Okay, maybe not literally, but I've been pausing it for a long time, and that's as quiet as that beeping is going to get. That's what I figured, unless I want to wait till tomorrow and do this. Anyway, here's Dogen's little rant. He says Daibutsu, which is him referring to himself, would like to tell Shakyo, that's the Mo of the story, the following. He says, before, when you grabbed Seido's, that's the Curly of the story, before, when you grabbed Seido's nostrils, if you wanted to grasp space, you should have grabbed the nostrils of yourself, Shakyo, and you should have understood how to grasp the fingertips with the fingertips. That's like grasping his own fingertips with the fingertips, of course. It's like looking at your own eyeballs as opposed to looking at a reflection of your eyeballs in the mirror. Like, you can't look at your own eyeballs, you can't grasp the fingertips with the fingertips. Even so, Shakyo, that's the Mo in the story. Thank you, helicopter. I had to stop it again for another 22 days to wait for a helicopter to go over. So he says, la-di-da, nostril, and you should have understood it. Okay. Even so, Shakyo does know a bit about the dignified behavior of grasping space. Even a good player at grasping space needs to research the interior and exterior of space, needs to research the deadening and vitalization of space, like the killing and making alive of space, and needs to know the lightness and weight of space. We should maintain and rely upon the teaching that the effort in pursuit of the truth, the establishment of the mind, the practice and experience, and the assertions and questions of Buddhas and patriarchs are just the grasping of space, which is Dogen's very fancy way of saying, look, kids, don't do this at home. Don't think that you're Zen Master Mo and you're teaching people by grabbing them on the nose or slapping them or whatever, that you can just do this, that just anybody can do this. There's all kinds of stories in Zen. The famous Hyakujo's fox, which I talked about last summer, and I called the video something like the famous fox koan, if you want to go look that up. That one contains Master Obaku slapping Master Hyakujo. So Obaku's in the audience, Hyakujo is his teacher giving the lecture, and Obaku does basically what Will Smith did at the Oscars. He walks up to Obaku and slaps him on the face. That's part of the koan. So it's almost a analogous moment in the sense that Will Smith was breaking the rules of decorum at the Oscars by walking up on stage, and then even breaking them even worse by slapping Chris Rock. Same deal with Obaku getting up during a Zen lecture and smacking his teacher on the face. So there's all sorts of stuff like that that goes on in Zen stories. And Dogen here in this passage is explaining in a very oblique and poetic and hard to understand way that don't do this. Hey kids, don't do this. It is better to just discuss the matter if you want to really get at it. And unless you are a great Zen master like Sakyo in the story? I think his name is Sakyo. Zen Master Mo, I call him. Unless you're like Zen Master Mo and one of the peak Zen masters, you don't grab people by the nose, you don't walk up and slap them in the face, you don't teach like that. Now, this doesn't really relate nicely and directly to the Will Smith Chris Rock incident, but it does relate to something that does come up in Zen circles even today, is people will read these stories of slaps and shouts and smacks and think, oh, that's how it's done. God dang, another helicopter. Anyway, they'll go, oh yeah, that's how it's done. I'm gonna smack my teacher, or I'm gonna punch somebody, and then they'll get the enlightened or something like that. And Dogen is saying don't do that, and I'm saying that to you in case you're one of those people who might be inclined to do that. I've never tried it myself, except at one time I was talking to this guy and he seemed like a really, really sincere practitioner. Like he really was kind of, you know, about to get it. And I was having this kind of intense discussion with him, and as I think I just said, it was late at night. It was kind of a weird atmosphere, and I didn't know the guy very well, but I just poked him in the arm. I didn't do it even as hard as I just poked myself, but I kind of poked him to see if I could kind of snap him out of his intellectual reverie. And boy, that guy just went, blah! He started shouting and screaming and going on and on about how he had some kind of trauma about being touched by people. And oh, God, it went on and on. And I apologized profusely to the guy and said I'll never do it again. We made up and it was okay. But that was my lesson. I don't do that stuff anymore. I don't try that stuff. A lot of stories I've heard coming out of the Zen world in America have kind of circled around people trying that sort of thing and then getting accused of abuse and all sorts of things, which is not to say that there have been some real abuse that has gone on in the Zen world and Buddhist world in the United States and elsewhere. But there's also, I think, been cases where a teacher has tried to use one of these techniques, or maybe a student or whatever has tried to use one of these techniques of physical contact, or hitting and smacking, and it's just gone terribly wrong, and everybody's gotten upset and, litigious, is how do you pronounce it? Putting lawsuits up and all this stuff, and you just, I don't think you should do that. And it might account for a lot of what's gone on in some Zen circles. I don't know. As being people hearing these stories and attempting to do them themselves. And maybe this has always gone on. So maybe this is why Dogen spends like a paragraph in Shobo Genzo reminding his students or telling his students, don't do this kind of stuff. So there you go. Also, just addressing the thing of people saying, oh, you should cut out all the beeps and noises and weird distractions, and some people like it. I like it, so I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to cut them out. I'm going to leave them in. But you might see less of that in the future, and that's the thing I alluded to yesterday, which is my wife and I have decided to buy a house, which I'm 58 years old. I have never in my life owned a thing I had to make payments on. Never. Not even a car. Every car I've owned has been like a beater that I had enough money in the bank to pay for, outright without making payments on it. So this whole thing of buying a house is insane to me. But it looks like that's going to happen. We're still fingers crossed that everything goes through. We just got the word yesterday that our bid had been accepted. So we'll see. And that's why I said maybe in the future I'm going to be hoping for more donations to make sure we can keep on paying for this thing. So it's good news rather than bad news. But it is something I've never embarked upon before, which is why I'm going to put down here the address, the URL, which you can find my Patreon and PayPal links if you want to make a donation. I forgot to say it's hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. I appreciate it. That is really my only means of support. Mainly my income is, number one is donations you guys send in. Number two is payments I get when I go out and give talks and lectures, which doesn't happen that often. And way down, the number three is way far, and that's book royalties, which amount to basically not much, really not much. So that's how I get my money, and I really appreciate your support. But as always, this is offered for free. Sorry for the bang. And you don't got to pay if you don't want to pay. So we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Don't slap anybody. Bye. Hey, Ziggy. I never slapped you, did I? No, I never do any physical harm to my little doggy, do I? So I shouldn't do that, and I should just talk to you. He's really good. Like, if I say no to him, I have to be careful to use that word. He really responds. He doesn't need any sort of physical prompting. He's a good dog. So, Ziggy, let's talk to you later. You want to go back inside where it's warm?